You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. Hello and welcome to Nurture Your Zest. My name is Ashleigh King and I'm really excited because today I've got a really great guest and I can't wait to share him with you. So today I'm going to be joined by Bryn. Bryn has got such an interesting story from growing up in a Victorian mental asylum in the grounds of this space. He also has he's one of four. He is a middle child. He's got three other siblings. We're going to hear about his journey, how he went into being a policeman, worked all over the world, and how he then became an actor and then went into making gin. So what a story, what a whirlwind, and I can't wait to talk to him. So I'm going to bring Bryn on now. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Ashleigh. How's things?
Great. It's so nice to see you. And I'm really excited about your story. And can I just compliment you on your beautiful background? You are very on brand today.
Yeah. Well, we've got to try, haven't we?
Absolutely. So I've just done a big just spiel about you, but it's always best to hear from a guest in their own words. So can you tell us more about yourself?
Right. So as you said, I'm one of four boys. My parents were nurses at the psychiatric hospital, which was called Knoll Hospital in Rye. And if I look out of my kitchen window, I see a big chimney stack, which belongs to Rye Pumping Museum. And that was just right next to where we lived. So although I've been all around the country, I'm now back to where it all started. So we moved to the hospital to live in the grounds of the hospital when I was aged 5, just turning on 6. And what a crazy place it was, because we had a psychiatric hospital at the front of the house and a general hospital at the back of the house. So we were surrounded by basically hospital. The street I lived in, there was only 9 houses in a block of terrace. And we lived in the largest one in the centre, and we just met loads of very interesting people. Very scary at first. When I played when I first moved there, it was all dark. There was one street light at the back of the house, so we played near there, which also looked onto the mortuary for the general hospital. So we didn't know what it was at age 5, but that's what it was. And then we saw this figure. It was about 6, 7 o'clock at night, very dark night. And there was a figure came along, big hulk of a figure with a big pom-pom hat on. That's all you could see, the silhouette of the big pom-pom hat. And this thing came walking along, the pom-pom man, he's going to get us. So we all ran to our respective houses and told my mother. My mother said, "Oh, it's okay." And the guy's nickname was the Dummy, which politically incorrect today, but he couldn't speak and he couldn't hear. So over the years, we developed a good friendship with him. He would always come to the house. Our doors were always open, and he'd quite often just walk in the house and help himself to a cup of tea or whatever, as did quite a few of the other patients. So it was a very strange thing. But my mother taught us all about empathy and caring. And we would quite often go up to see some of the patients who'd been there all their lives, from the guy, his real name was Tommy. He was put in there age 13 and deemed an imbecile by the courts because he went for a ride on someone's bike without asking. So he was then sectioned and placed in care, and he died in the hospital when he was about 78 years old. So you just can't think about that these days. It just wouldn't happen, but that was the case. Lots of old soldiers who had post-traumatic stress disorder, but were deemed cowards. They were there, school teachers, nervous breakdowns, bank managers, you name it, everybody was there. Unmarried mothers and the children, they were all there. And
it's incredible to hear your story, actually. I know you've got such a broad story that we're going to chat about, and I'm really excited for that. But just this bit that you're sharing right now, I mean, it's crazy to think how much has changed in terms of mental health since then. But even we know that there's still more to do, right? But I mean, what you've said there about someone being put in an asylum from 13 years old and actually dying there all those years later, you know, for riding someone's bike without asking, that's just incredible to hear. As a child, seeing all of these experiences, you know, through a child's eyes, that's really fascinating to me, actually, for yourself and your three brothers, you know, that you grew up in this space, and the opportunities to learn empathy and learn about other people. I mean, that's really incredible. But what a space to be around. I'm really moved by a lot of what you've said there about the people that you met and actually experienced growing up with.
Yeah, I mean, poor Tommy never had a visitor from being placed in the hospital, and quite often that was the case. As soon as you were sectioned, you were deemed crazy, and you were placed in the asylum. There would be no more visitations from anyone. So my mother worked on an acute geriatric ward where there was quite a lot of old people who suffered dementia, as we would know now, and it's nearly all dealt with at home. But these people would have no visitors or anything like that. Some of them didn't have kids. There might have been widows from the war. So my mother would encourage us to go to the ward and celebrate birthdays with the various patients. So we'd go there, and I just couldn't stand the smell, to be honest. And that's why I became a cop. I thought I could never be a nurse and have to work in these conditions ever. Oh, no. However, I got lots worse smells in the police service than I ever smelled in the hospital. But no, it was, you go there, and these people would be so overjoyed at having a visitor. And we would be up there during the summer holidays. We were there every day visiting patients, and it was good for us because we saw the joy in their face, and we understood.
Absolutely, that's really interesting to hear, and thank you for sharing that. And you did mention about the smells. That's interesting too. Can you tell us a bit about your cop days? So you had a really long career in the police force, and you actually went all over the world, and you moved up the ranks. You know, so you went into the police force, and then you've got three brothers who all went into nursing. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the three brothers are still nursing, whereas I was able to retire after doing 3 decades. I'll correct you on the moving through the ranks. I stayed at the same rank throughout my career, although I did a bit of acting supervisor during my time. But yeah, my first day in the police, I joined Thames Valley Police because I was an inch too short to get into Northumbria. I was about 4 inches too short to get into Cleveland Police, who was another force, and similarly, I couldn't get into Durham because of the height. Had I actually applied to those forces, I would have probably got in any case because I was offered a place in Cleveland. But I was so nervous about trying to go for the local force in case I didn't get in and have that embarrassment. So I joined Thames Valley, got in, did me 15 weeks training in Cumbraen in Wales, where they thought it was sacrilege that a guy called Bryn Jones came down from the northeast of England and wasn't Welsh. So I was known as the Fog on the Tyne. I don't know why. But my first day out of training school at work was a night shift. And the job that came in just as I started night shift was a fatal air crash. So I got there just as they dug what was left of the pilot out of the plane, which had crashed, burst into flames, and he was obviously dead. If you think of a sausage on a barbecue and the skin peels off and burns, that's just how he looked. And although horrific, it was quite fascinating. And I was asked, had I seen a dead body yet? And I said, oh, I'd seen my grandfather in his coffin. Oh, come and have a look at this. And, so I followed him through his post-mortem and the inquests and things like that. But my life seemed to be all about death and destruction throughout my service. I tended to be the unlucky one or the lucky one because I went to them, nobody else had to go to them. So probably before your time, there's a guy called Michael Ryan. In 1980, it was 1987, he went on a rampage with an AK-47, pistols as well, in a little village called Hungerford in Thames Valley. And he shot dead 16 people on this rampage, and then he killed himself. But we were sent there because he shot a cop as well. And the aftermath in the village of Hungerford was quite nasty. And my job was to ensure that his house where he lived was kept safe and people not to intrude and things like that. But speaking to the witnesses, the story developed and it was quite horrific. But it was by that time that was just the norm. So although it was quite nasty to see, and I've obviously still got memories of a lot of the things that I did see, we didn't get time quite often to process those things. So you're left with a little bit of residue that comes back to haunt you every now and again. But policing was just great. I loved it. It was a different challenge every day. Lots of funny stuff went on. And I'll probably tell you about a story when I was working in South Tyneside. I was given the job of taking a prisoner who was responding to police bail. He'd been a shoplifter. And because there was a little bit of doubt as to if it was him or not, he was given an ID parade, they were dealt with at Biker. So I spoke to the young guy, he's probably about 18 years old. And he said, "Oh, look," he said, "I've turned up really early for me appointment, and I was too early. And I asked if I could go and get some breakfast, and they wouldn't let me. They said I would be in breach of bail." And I said, "Look, we'll stop and get something on the way back if need be." So I took this guy to Biker, sat him in the front seat of a big people carrier, like a riot van, and had the chat on the way up. He went on the ID parade. He was picked out as being the guilty person. And on the way back, I had him in the front seat and chatting to him instead of putting him in the cage in the back with his handcuffs on. I had him sat on the front seat with me, just having a chin wag, just a friendly conversation. And I was going to stop off at McDonald's and sort of let him get himself something to eat. As we left Biker police station, you've got to go across a big bridge at Biker to get towards Newcastle. And at that point, I became aware of a car which wasn't parked on the road. It was just abandoned in the road. So I stopped my van, said to the boy, I said, "Look, just stay there." I went to investigate, and there was a guy on the wrong side of the bridge. And at footpath level, through the railings, I could see a head. Oh my God, it's a jumper. So I thought, what do I do? My pocket radio didn't work at Biker, so I ran to the van, got on the radio, said, "Look, can you get me the police, the fire and ambulance? I've got a prisoner in my van, I can't deal with this." So I then told the guy to stay put in the van, ran round and got unsighted of the head. He was talking to a member of the public and just instinctively dived on the floor with my handcuffs in my hand, handcuff on him, handcuff on me. And then it was a case, now what do I do? So I then get somebody's mobile phone, rings the police again, explains, "Look, I'm handcuffed to this guy. He's not going to go anywhere. I can't fit through the gap underneath. Can you make sure that the police, fire and ambulance are here so they can take over me because I've got a prisoner in my van?" At that point, I looked in my van and he was still sat there. thankfully, because the engine was running in the van, and it was just, spur of the moment thing. Eventually, fire brigade turned up, and they abseiled a guy across the wrong side of the bridge to sort of grab hold of the guy. Long story short, we brought him back on the safe side, and then I looked, and my prisoner had gone, and I was like, oh my God. So good thing, bad thing, good thing, bad thing. Bad thing would always win. So I'm like, oh, heart pumping out of my chest, of course, because I knew I was in the wrong, because he should have been handcuffed in the cage in the back of my van. And now he's disappeared, and he's guilty of an offence. He's been picked out an ID, and I thought, oh my goodness. But then the crowd that had gathered just parted, and there he was, jumping up and down. Whoa! It's like the Bill. Now, for some people who may not know, the Bill was a long-running TV series about the police in London. And he said, it's like the Bill. I didn't think stuff like this happened in real life. I can't believe it. You're here. You're saved. Oh, and he just couldn't shut the guy up. So I passed my details to the cops that arrived, and then we just disappeared into my van, my heart thumping out my chest, because I thought I'd lost my prisoner. I'd saved somebody's life, and now I've got my prisoner back. So many emotions. So I drove down to Felling Bypass, stopped off at McDonald's, got him at McDonald's, and drove to the police station, where we were met by an angry solicitor who said, you've kept my prisoner out on purpose. You've been interviewing him, haven't you? And by that time, I couldn't speak. So, and the prisoner was just, oh, you should have seen it. It was like the Bill. And he bouncing like crazy. So different sort of troubles every day. And about 2 weeks later, I was on night shift with another guy, and we got a call about 5 o'clock in the morning, again in South Shields. And I don't know whether you know the Law Top, which is big, tall Victorian houses near the seafront. And one of this call was, there's a woman on top of the roof shouting for help. Somebody said she was going to kill herself and stuff like that. So we got to the address. We said, it's not going to be. It's just going to be rubbish. And sure enough, there's a woman on the very top floor on the roof of a Victorian house, and I had to push the door in, run up the stairs. She'd locked the door from the inside and took the handle off. So we had to push through that door, and we couldn't wait for the fire brigade. So instant decision again. I crawled out of the skylight, and my colleague got his belt wrapped around me ankles, so he had purchase on my ankles, and I crawled down to the edge of the roof, and we managed to pull her back in. So, and then we went home. so yeah, so lots of good stories like that.
Absolutely. It's amazing, the stories you've shared there, the courage and the fast decision making that you had to make in those circumstances. I mean, did you feel like it was such an adrenaline rush in those circumstances, or? Yeah.
It's a huge adrenaline rush you get, and then because the job can be so, I wouldn't say repetitive, but it's so on the go all the time. It's so dynamic. You go from job to job to job, and sometimes you don't even know where you are. But yeah, it was always good for me because I would get a good adrenaline rush. I really enjoyed the danger. I loved the danger aspect. Crazy enough as it is, but I didn't mind if I died. It was just one of those things. I didn't believe that I was going to die, so I was more than happy to take these risks. And the lady on the roof, I made it when I got out onto the roof and crawled down to the edge. I could see the pitch roof of the galley kitchen on the extension on Victoria. Now it's quite often have a galley kitchen now, and she was quite a portly lady. So I was thinking, well, hopefully, if we do go, I'll land on the pitch roof, and she would land on the ground, and I'd be safe. And then I thought, well, if I twist her on me, to try and get those sort of things. Yeah, but it just happens, and it's like that.
It's amazing to hear what comes to your mind as you're making those fast decisions as well. I'm really inspired by those stories, especially the one of you handcuffing yourself to the guy on the bridge. I mean, that was fast thinking, but as you say, you had a criminal, a person who was actually guilty sitting in the back of your van. So that moment of seeing he was gone, I can't even imagine the fear that must have hit you there.
Yeah, it was
and
just,
the relief.
No. Yeah, it was a huge sense of relief when he came bouncing through. Yay! Really excited. I mean, the guy, I couldn't shut him up all the way back. And we got to the police station, and by then I was so dry because the adrenaline had started to dissipate. And I just got to the reality, well, this solicitor is having a really big go at me for being late with his prisoner. And the sergeant was looking at me, whoa, what's going on? And then I said, look, he'll tell you the story. And I just left them. I couldn't, yeah.
Absolutely. I'd like to ask you, Bryn, so you've been in some pretty crazy situations there. Did you experience, while being in the police force, burnout or experience in terms of PTSD, going through these very fast-paced, high-charged situations?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with PTSD back in probably 2007, 2008, but I'd had some pretty nasty assaults during my time as well. So, and you deal with things, you're picking up young children who were dead and you're going to tell their parents. And there's lots of trauma that there's no training that you could have. The training I had, I suppose, from being a child, having the empathy, I was able to give everybody that support that they needed. So you would go to a relative of somebody went off the cliff at Marsden, I recall, just a couple of days before Christmas, and I had to go and tell the widow and the children. And you can't prepare yourself for that sort of thing, but you just did it.
Yeah, I mean, keeping yourself going in those circumstances must have been hard. And as you say, you learned at a very young age to have empathy for other people, but sometimes to have empathy for yourself is even harder. So absolutely, those circumstances and stories are, incredible to hear what you've gone through, but also keeping yourself going, I think, is really something. You mentioned, or I know that you did a lot of work internationally with the police. So is this something that you did alongside your main police role, or is this something that you then moved to do as a different thing?
Right. It's a voluntary organisation called the International Police Association, which is it was started in the UK by a guy called Arthur Troop. He had friendships with a German police officer, and after the war, they wanted to keep that friendship going. So they created this organisation that sort of English cops, German cops, French cops, Belgian cops could have a friendship outside of post-war, because we all had that central sort of feeling of helping people. That grew. Now it's the largest friendship organisation in the world. We've got branches all over they're called sections. I was local secretary for the Northumbria branch. I then became a regional vice president, and then I became national vice president. So I looked after forces down in the likes of Portsmouth, Devon and Cornwall, and stuff like that, as well as in Oxfordshire. So the members of those areas I'd looked after. So if anything they needed, they would come to me. But it was all voluntary. So I had very little time for myself, as well as doing my own police work. But I was also a police federation representative. So I was a union rep, if you like, for cops. So I looked after cops who were in bother, or cops who had issues. I would look after them. So,
And all of this while also raising a family. I mean, what a guy. You had a lot on your plate, for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I would always have time for me kids, and you know, would always make sure that we went on holiday and had good holidays. But my phone was always there, and I would quite often get a call. I'd often get calls at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning saying, "Bryn, have you got the police diaries yet?" You know, but that's just people being thick.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear your experience and hear about some of the camaraderie that you had in the police force, you know, that to have these kind of organizations and voluntary roles to support people going through tough times. And I think it's really interesting to hear your experience. And through that, you actually met your co-founder of your organization. Actually, yeah. I've made a mistake there as well. You can correct me, but you met Peter, is that correct?
Yeah. Peter Meinken, he's still a serving cop out in Dusseldorf, and he looks after anti-terrorism units over there. He and one of his good friends called Henning Ubel is a fantastic football fan, and he travels all over the world just following football. I'd love to know where he gets his time off from, but he does work very hard in Vice over in Bochum. But we met Peter, and they would come across to Newcastle quite often, and they would stay, and they'd love to go down to the quayside, especially in the winter time, just so they could tell their friends what they'd seen. You know, people walking about in bare feet, guys with cap T-shirts on, you know, walking about and it's freezing cold, snowing, and it's just us in the northeast, you know. Dirty southerners, you can get your coat on, you know. But he would often say to me, "I'd love to be able to buy a drink that my family have made out in the Ruhr Valley." Because I'll go back a couple of steps. Peter's family have owned a distillery and worked with the distillery that dates back to 1749. They took ownership of it in the 30s and 40s, and it's been passed on to Peter. So when Peter's gran died, sadly last year, he was given that this is your business now, son. So he works full time as a cop, and he runs a distillery. Fortunately, it's only a small distillery that makes very, very limited drinks. He only sells drinks in the local area, to the Ruhr Valley and to where the distillery is. But he now supplies me with drink because he wanted drinks that his family had made, sold in the northeast. So we asked him to make us 3 gins, which you've tried, and they're up here. We've got Bergmann. There you go. That's German for miner. You'll think of a theme coming up soon. We have Renton. That nice looking fellow on the front of the bottle, that's my great grandfather. So that's what it's named after. And we have Vogel, which is German for bird. It's a canary bird on the bottle. So you'll see the theme is mining. So the Ruhr Valley and the northeast of England share huge mining heritage. So we wanted to celebrate that. And grandfather was a miner. So hence him being on the bottle.
It's beautiful to hear the story behind that and hear about, you know, the heritage, the mining heritage and all of that behind your family, but also Peter's family, and just hearing how you connected, how much he wanted to have, you know, something made by his family selling in Newcastle. That's really exciting.
Yeah. It is. And it was, I mean, as you know, my background is being a policeman. So I didn't know anything about selling gin. I knew a lot about alcohol because we used to deal with a lot of alcohol jobs. So for me, we had these gins created especially for us. And then we went out to find a couple of bars in Newcastle. So we went to Decanters and the Continental. So they stock us. The Cuban Cigar Club, which is another quirky little place. And then we sold online with Master of Malt and the Evil Eye Gin Shop, which holds the record for the amount of gins they sell. So we're there. And it's all done at this little place here. Where'd I go? So it hasn't changed much. That was taken in the 40s. The van's changed. And there's a little bit of green ivy growing up at the side of the building, and that's all. That's the only difference from that photograph.
It's so lovely to see that space and actually where it's made, and hear more about that. I think the Northeast. I'm actually not originally from the Northeast of England, originally from South Africa, but I know coming into the Northeast there is a strong heritage. There's people are very proud of the Northeast and the mining history. So it's really nice that you've been able to showcase that. Have your grandfather on the bottle, and then also showcase the history of the Ruhr Valley in Germany. I think that's really beautiful. This just goes to show how powerful networks can be, impromptu meetings that you don't expect to lead to you starting your own gym business. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, well, I'm saying the good thing, there's so many good things about it, because it's a relationship built on good friendships, and history and that love of history. For my background, all the mining history, I do a lot of family history, and I research, and we've lost so many people down the mines, but so many people have benefited from working in the mines as well. And when I speak to people at the various events that we go to, everybody has that connection in the Northeast. Everybody knows a miner. So when they see the bottle, they hear the story. It's great. Even if people don't drink gin, they like to come and see what what's it all about. Because we have a miniature mining tub, which is a scale model of a tub that they would push down the mines full of coal, and that's all sign written as well.
It's really interesting to think about mining as well, because there's so much in the media at the moment. Say, for instance, there's a renewed interest in things like what happened in the 70s and 80s, things like, my brain's just gone completely blank on her name. But everyone's watching The Crown at the moment. So Margaret Thatcher, sorry.
Yeah. the Iron Lady. Yeah.
Exactly. But, the changes that happened with the industrialization of Britain and, privatization and all of these things. And I'm just thinking about all of the family history you've got there, but then you've also got your start out, your career in the police around this context. And it's really interesting how all of this flows into each other. So, if you could look back 30, 40 years ago, would you have ever expected to start your own gin distillery or start your own business?
No, I expected that I'd do me 30 years in the police service. I really wanted to have a police dog. That was what I wanted to do, but I never did. I got a stray dog, and that's the only police-related dog that I've ever had. But she lasted 17 years. She came into the police station at Gerrard's Cross where I worked, and fantastic. And I couldn't have put up with having a police dog in the house because they were so tying. And it would be difficult to have the kids. I had a small child at the time. But yeah, to go into the police, into gin making, no, not a thought. Then again, I didn't think I would go into acting either.
Well, that's a really nice move into some of my next questions, which were about acting. Before we move off the gin, I would love to know, how did you come up with the recipes or the flavors that you wanted to bring to life? But also, which is your favorite?
Right, my favorite, it varies, but it started off with Bergmann, then it's gone to Renton, then it's gone back to Bergmann. But last week I tried the Renton again, and I just love the Renton because it's just so spicy and it's so, I suppose, complex. It's something new every time you taste it. And I find that with all of the gins is at different times of day when you try them, you get something different. And again, I suppose it's down to palate, what you've eaten the night before, if you've been eating garlic or sweet stuff. But as far as me gin is in a cocktail, if you think, I just straightforward gin martini, a gin vermouth, just get in there. And you can go into all the fancy detail of measures, but hey, I own the gin company, so I can put whatever I want in.
I love that. I have to say, I was very fortunate and spoiled to receive 3 of your gins, and I loved all of them. My husband and I were delighted actually to try them out. And my favorite one, I think, was the Vogel, because I love lemon and it was just beautiful, very fresh. But I really like all of them. I think the Renton was quite strong. It's the highest percentage of all of them, right? But it was really fresh, and I just loved it with the mixer, with the tonic. It was so refreshing. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I know that my family, who we obviously haven't been seeing our families at the moment with lockdown and things like this, they're all really excited to try them. So they're going to be on our Christmas table for sure, and it's going to be nice to share them with everyone.
Cool. It's always nice to get a little bit of good feedback. Any feedback is good feedback for me, whether somebody doesn't like it or somebody loves it. Majority of the time, everybody loves the drink. But, you can't please all palates.
Well, I think as a big gin fan anyway, for me, I'm very happy with them. It was really nice to try them. And it's always nice to try something new that you haven't tried before, and that you can experience. So you did mention acting. So can I ask, how did you get into acting, and what was your favorite role?
Right. Well, how I got into it, I went to just prior to retiring, a couple of steps back, not long before retiring, I was diagnosed with multiple tumours around my kidneys. So I'd been off work a couple of weeks. I went to a charity do at the Customs House at South Shields and met a lady there by the name of Bessie Williams, who owns a company called Anyone4.tv. So Anyone for TV. And she says, what are you going to do when you retire, Bryn? I said, well, I'm just going to retire. Oh, well, why don't you do this being a film extra? I just didn't think anything of it. And then I met her a few months after I'd had my first kidney chopped up. And I met her. She says, will you come on this show on a program called Beowulf? So I went up to Westgate in the Durham Valley, the Ruhr Valley. And I went on to this film set, never done before. And it was just a breeze. You sat there for maybe 13 hours of the day, in a costume that they supply. They feed you breakfast, lunch, supper. You go home and you get a check in the post. So I did that for about a week, on and off, Then I did Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So I spent a week in Liverpool filming that. Just a very small scene. And we were dressed as sort of the gentry, if you like, so top hat and tails. And then from there, we did a further weekend down at Warner Brothers Studios, doing that again in the same garb. And that was very well paid. And then I went up to Scotland and worked on River City, which is their version, the Scottish version of EastEnders, I suppose. It's a very long-running soap. So I became quite well known up there. So I would travel up there, stay in nice hotels, and it was good. And then I was asked to audition for Daniel Blake, and I became the infamous policeman who arrests Daniel Blake, bless him. So I'm on the back cover of the DVD, and I'll be there eternally.
How does it feel to know that you are going to be on the back cover of a DVD, or, that people might recognize you from things? I mean, has anyone recognized you, or what did people think about you doing these types of roles, bearing in mind you were doing the police stuff and then you were doing acting stints?
I've got a very jovial family, should we say. So there's a lot of Mickey taking, but you get on these things. When I first went to Daniel Blake, I wasn't going to be the cop on the back cover of the DVD. I was going to be somebody that was going to be there. Ken Loach said, "Look, Bryn, you're a cop. You've done this thing before. Can you do this?" So yeah, we can do that. So I was sort of talking with Ken Loach and Paul, the scriptwriter, and we just spoke through what was meant to happen, what was going to happen, and we just mainly ad-libbed it in the end. And I spent 2 days throwing Davy Jones in the back of a police car. So Davy Jones being the actor that played Daniel Blake. Well, he wasn't an actor at the time. He was the comedian who just fell into it like I did. Just happened. But yeah, it's fun, and I would do it again. I got my grandkids on the episode 1 of series 9 of Vera. So they were kids that played in the background in a nice house in Blanchland. So you can hear them shouting, "Grandad, Grandad." But it wasn't for me. It was for the guy who played. So yeah. So it's all good fun. I think anybody should give it a go. It doesn't cost anything.
It sounds excellent, and it sounds like they really treat you well.
Yeah, they do. You get well fed. I mean, when the kids went to Blanchland for Vera, they had their own caravan and they had a chaperone as well as me. And they were just so well looked after, and they really want to do it again, but they're a little bit nervous about it. I mean, they don't get the name in the credits or anything like that. They just have to be there, and they got paid £50 a day, and
wow.
they just thought it was fantastic. And they were 8 and 11 at the time.
Amazing. So you've had lots of different hats in your career. You've really done a lot of different stuff. Is there anything that you've really loved most out of all of those things you've done?
I think it's going to sound a bit cliche, but saving people's lives. I've done a lot of that, and at the same time, I've had people die in my arms as well as saving their lives. And people have gone on to kill themselves after, not because they've met me, I would hope. But yeah, you deal with that. But I think it's just having people and being nice to people. That's my bag. That's beautiful. Why I give lots of gin away.
Yeah, you do. You're very kind, and you've been very kind for anyone listening today that you've been kind enough to give a discount. So for anyone who's listening on podcast when this is released, if you use the code NYZ10, you'll be able to get 10% off at House of Ruhr. So I will put that in the website and in the links, so you will find it. But it's really kind of you, actually, Bryn, for doing that. I want to ask something that I ask lots of people on the show, but it's really relevant to your circumstances and your story. So going through some of those challenges and, PTSD, even the health difficulties you've had with your kidneys, which also could be related to stress or, all of these different things. How do you nurture your zest? So how do you look after yourself? How do you pick yourself up when things are difficult? What do you do to kind of bring yourself back to feeling good again?
Well, I look around and realise that nothing that I will suffer is as bad as what a lot more people than me are suffering from. So I'm never a victim, if you like. Although I've been a victim of lots of things, I can't play a victim. I don't know how to let my hair down these days, but I used to do a lot of sort of crazy things when I was a kid. My bones and my joints are not that capable of doing it. I'd love to jump off a tall bridge with a parachute, to be honest, but I'd probably be a bit scared to do it now. I think I'd just rather travel. I love traveling. I love traveling. I love driving all over the place. So just discovering new places and sitting down and watching people. That's how I chill out.
It's really beautiful to hear that. And I think for most of us, we can't leave the house at the moment, so we can't travel as much. And that does take away for a lot of people their coping measure. But it is nice that we can still go for walks and, experience things locally wherever we are. And I think part of traveling that's so beautiful is being able to see different cultures and different experiences.
Yeah.
And, you'll have been able to do that with all of the international work you did with the police work. And I think as well, what you said there about, you might not be in the same situation as someone else, whatever you're going through, there's people going through worse things. That again just shows your empathy that you've grown up with and really from a young age just had ingrained within you and your psyche and who you are. So that's really beautiful. Okay, so if people want to find you online, obviously we know that we've got the link to the website here, but if they wanted to chat to you or if they wanted to hire you to be in their show or whatever it might be, how do you like people to contact you?
They can contact me. We've got the email address info@houseofruhr.co.uk. We're on Facebook, House of Ruhr, on Instagram, House of Ruhr. So we're really easily findable. And we're more than happy to come out and talk about our gins or talk about the stories. We've got lots of stories about the distillery that we haven't got into. It was in a big industrial area during the time of the war. So the Ruhr Valley was huge. Close by to the distillery was the Krupp's oil refinery and a coal mine. The Krupp's oil refinery was almost destroyed completely. The mine was saved and our distillery was saved. So, but there's a story behind that.
It's incredible to think about the war specifically, bearing in mind that we recently celebrated Remembrance Day and all of these different things. And just thinking about the fact that the distillery is in Germany, it's really interesting because they were making gin, potentially that some of the soldiers may have been drinking. It's quite hard to get your head around in some ways. I mean, have you and Peter ever spoken about that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Peter loves the RAF. He's got this fascination for the RAF. Even though he's German, his parents are German. His grandfather, who's called Ludwig Meinken, he and his wife Anne-Marie, which was obviously the lady who died just recently, Ludwig was conscripted into the army, into the start of World War II. He didn't want to go in the army, and he was given an ultimatum: you go, or your family goes. Mm. So Ludwig was by trade a chemist. So he had a shop which was called a druggery, which is his connection with the distillery originally was they would make all the alcoholic sort of medicines, if you like. So Ludwig was given the option: you either join the army or you don't, and he chose to become a medic. So because he was a medic, he was sent to the front line along with quite a lot of the other the pharmacies, and there was 35 of them were sent to the front line. And while he was over there, he was making new drinks, and he created quite a few beverages over there. And his wife Anne-Marie made, I don't know what I've got, this drink here, bizarrely. This is a caramel and vanilla liqueur, and she created that while he was away. And he made the promise to the 35 guys: look, when we go back, we'll go to my distillery and we'll crack open a bottle of this. And there was only 9 of them made it back. So they have a crest for the distillery, and it has the number 9 there to celebrate that fact. And of course, they're all gone now.
It's wonderful that they made it back, but also so moving to hear the story of that, and also the fact that he didn't want to be part of that war. He was forced into it. And, I think this is a really important point that looking at the past, we can see things sometimes through our lens now of what we know or what we know happened. But at that time, a lot of people didn't know what was going on. And even if they did, what could they have done? It's really interesting. But I think it's beautiful that there is this connection with Germany, with these two families and with this gorgeous drink, and the caramel one actually sounds amazing. I know that's not one of your company ones, but it's really interesting to hear the history behind that specific story. So the stuff you do is it's really beautiful and recognizes so much heritage. I'm mindful of the time, so I just want to ask you, to wrap it up, Bryn, what is your number one word that you would use to sum up how you nurture your zest? So you shared some of that before, but if you could sum up your life in one word, or the thing that kind of lights you up and gets you out of bed every day, what would that one word be?
I'd probably be caring. Which is a strange word, but I can't help but care. So I have no enemies that I know. I never hold a grudge, and if somebody who'd done me harm, I would still look after them. Yeah. It's
a really beautiful approach to life, and I think again just weaves through from the beginning. Your childhood and growing up around people being cared for. It's so interesting that there was no other way for you to grow up except to take that on and emulate those behaviors. So it's really beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Bryn.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm going to take you off now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Take care.
Thanks. Hi, thank you so much for listening to Nurture Your Zest today. It was really fun to chat to Bryn, and I hope that you'll check out his amazing liqueurs. They are really, really delicious, but more importantly, the heritage and the history behind them is so moving. And yeah, hope to see you soon and catch you next time. Bye.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest. If you've liked today, please subscribe. You can also leave us a review if you're feeling extra kind. Today's podcast has been made available through the kind sponsorship of TL Multimedia and That Branding Company. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.